Hello everyone. It is Kenny here, it's Basketball Rewind, and I'm here. It's another day, another mock draft, and so that's really what it's about today. Today we're going to be going through the Yahoo mock draft. Haven't seen them in a while. Haven't read KOC's stuff in a while because I've been trying to focus on my stuff and not letting others opinions and analysis influence my own. However, I think it is sometimes very interesting for people to see where the consensus lies, where it doesn't lie, and we're going to basically be following along with these different mock drafts, looking at them and seeing where I agree. But also, more importantly, I think we're just going to be going through 1 through 14 because after that, especially with the NIL money, all hell can break loose after that because a lot of guys are actually withdrawing from the draft at the latter half. So, with that being said, let's go get into it. Let's talk about it. And let's see where KOC is in terms of the draft. I believe this is his second 2.0 mock draft. I did not review his first. Didn't want to do like a billion mock drafts at once. I will say this, just as I'm getting into it really quickly, height, weight, measurements, all that, just ignore them. We're going to mainly be focusing on the comparisons. In the future, I might go through some of what he actually has outlined here and there. And some of the attributes that the players have, I think is pretty interesting. So let's go through it. Number 1 pick, Mavs. No surprise here, it's Cooper Flagg. Obviously, this makes sense. I don't really want to analyze like why or why not they should take Cooper Flagg. This is kind of a home run pick. This is kind of obvious based on what just happened, what they just did, what they just traded away. So to me, makes sense for them to do that. I agree. This isn't talked about enough. But he does have that dog. The way that he plays is fairly relentless on both sides of the ball. I think he's an amazing team defender. I think he's a really good on-ball defender as well. A really high basketball IQ. I saw some of his high school tape a long time ago, about a year ago actually, even a little bit further than that. And if you've been a follower or a sub of this channel for a while, you'll know I'm a big Cooper Flagg fan, and I think that he has met expectations, except for not winning the tournament, of course, so far in his short-lived college career. Scottie Pippen, I understand why people are saying that. I think from a defensive standpoint, it's closer to that than it is Andre Kirilenko, but I also think that there are concerns about him being a primary, and I think it depends on what you're looking for a primary. Can he be a primary initiator of the offense? I think so. I think he showed that he can punch up in terms of him being a good scoring threat, but you're not going to need him to punch up all the time on a team like Dallas, which has really good guys. You don't need him to post up all the time. I think he showed that he has an expanded range, although the form sometimes it could lead to some inconsistencies. So yeah. Okay, we move on to the next one, and here we are. So Harper, of course, is being drafted by the Spurs. Now, I've said this before. Drew Holiday is an interesting comp, mainly because I do think that Harper has unlocked or a locked away ability to be a better defender on ball. I mainly saw his defensive deficiencies this year off ball. But Darren Williams is another interesting. I remember him and Chris Paul going at it. I think the key thing here is that he is able to get to the rim. He's a lefty, southpaw, able to get to the rim at will, and he is able to convert at the rim. And I don't think that the craft that goes with that, his handle, I know there are some concerns about his athleticism from different places, wherever, but I think because he knows his body and he knows how to maneuver around, I think it's a really, really, really fair thing to say that Harper, in my opinion, is someone who, frankly, is going to be, pretty close to a sure thing in the NBA. You can never say like 100% sure, but I don't see his skill set not converting through into success at the NBA level even early on. I like how they mentioned some of the fit issues. So, again, the weird thing is him next to Castle is kind of weird. There are questions about whether or not he can shoot, but I mean, when he's creating so much in other ways and had to with very little help outside of Ace Bailey, who was also injured, and there was some health issues between the two of them that kept them from building a good synergy throughout the entirety of the year. To me, I think that we'll have to see, but I do see him being able to hit the early ones that are open, and I do see him being able to have a really good career path. Is the best fit the Spurs? In my opinion, no. I do think that there's a lot of smoke that comes out around draft time. I mean, if you're just picking best player available, Dylan Harper is it. But the Spurs really should be considering either trading the pick, as I've outlined before, for whoever it is, whether it's Giannis or otherwise, or frankly, they should be looking in terms of long-term, someone who could have the highest upside. And to me, that could be Ace Bailey. Which makes a little bit more sense in terms of having a long-term wing. Okay, now we get to Philly. We get to Ace Bailey. I've joked about the Rudy Gay type comparisons before, Michael Porter Jr. I don't know if they're entirely fair. I don't know if I agree with them entirely. However, I do see a little bit of it. I do like the freakish athlete. I do like the mid-range assassin. I do think that sometimes his athleticism in some ways is overstated and in some ways is understated. I think he's more flexible. You've seen him do some of these crossovers where he's getting down low almost like he's Kemba. And for someone he's not 6'10", he's measured lower than that. But for someone of his size to be able to do that, I know that the handle is something that people have brought up, but I would say that it is certainly, in my opinion, something that will improve based on what I've seen so far. Off-ball mover, I agree with that. He does move off-ball, and I think he can kind of like step into shots. There's ways for him to get a much more efficient offensive diet and really get him better. I've seen this before, and I've said it. I think, I could definitely see a variation of Rashard Lewis. People say these things as an insult. I don't. I think if that's your floor, in terms of like your floor of what you could be when you are more close to being a finished product, that's a pretty damn good floor in most cases. And I think that he fits in Philly. There's talk of someone else, like VJ, but really I do see him as the next best thing. Now, if Philly does not take him, the next thing that they should do is consider someone, and they really like that skill set, take Tre Johnson. Let Ace fall and take Tre Johnson. Now, that gives me the first three. As we move into the Charlotte Hornets, it's very simple. If Ace Bailey is here, I don't think that they take him. I could see them taking, VJ Edgecombe. A lot of people said that he was not 6'5", and he's basically a quarter of an inch shorter than 6'5". He's basically 6'5". I've seen this Victor Oladipo thing as a way to diss him. I disagree with that. Ben Mathurin is interesting they're both around 6'5". I don't mind this comparison, but I do think that he has more athleticism in terms of the punch and how he uses it. Not that Ben Mathurin doesn't have that, but yeah, and I think he uses it much more cohesively on the defensive end. VJ Edgecombe should be a top 4 pick in my opinion, and I do think that this gives Charlotte some perimeter defense, which is what they're looking for. Alternatively, there's a world where Charlotte could trade back and try to get a center, but I just think that they're just trying to get talent and move forward. Their rebuild is going to be long. I do like the lob threat because, again, for someone who's 6'5", he is getting up there and he can finish it. Pickpocket, like it. And a 3-point marksman. This is the funny thing, is that he wasn't known as that coming in, but he actually ended up becoming that throughout the season. Shooting above 40% for stretches of the season from deep. It did really well overall. So I think there's a lot to like about his game. He's someone who does need to get stronger, does need to get better at finishing around the hoop, does need to significantly improve the handle. However, he is someone that I personally believe has star potential, and especially if you're comparing him to likes of Victor Oladipo, in my opinion. Well, Victor Oladipo was an All-NBA player, All-Defense, and All-Star at his peak before the injury. So, yeah. Cam Johnson. This is interesting. He's actually not 6'7", he's close to 6'5", so I don't know if these player comparisons are just coming from the size aspect. I think that Kon Knueppel in Utah is something that I've heard, and so It's not who I would pick for Utah, but I have heard the buzz and I've seen it in a number of places, so I'm not surprised to see this. I think Utah ultimately might just look for a fit here. I think it's something that, from their standpoint, hey, we get a fit, we get to tank more, we get to go to the next, just keep it moving and keep on tanking next year. Choo all aboard on the AJ Dybantsa train. So yeah, I think that's what they're looking for. They'll get a good look at AJ Dybantsa being there. I do think that there's a world where they want to get a point guard, but they might be looking for the right point guard. So there's a world where they could take Fears. I think that they're looking for a bigger point guard. There's a world where they trade back and try to get Yegor, to be honest, and just take the swing and say, hey, we're going to take the swing. We're looking further into the future. They're collecting a lot of assets, a lot of guys that at some point you have to figure out who's playing, who's not, as these guys start their NBA careers. But I think Kon Knueppel, because I've heard the rumors, I think it'd be, I'm not surprised. Tre Johnson. I think Tre Johnson is interesting because he could go, like I said, he could go top 3. He could fall a bit all the way down to Brooklyn. I don't necessarily see him falling to the Raptors, but if he is there, I would love him to be a Raptor. Now, to focus on this team, the Washington Wizards, I think it's a little bit interesting. I'm going to just lower this a little bit. The way that I look at Tre Johnson, he has a very similar but more refined skill set as Ace Bailey. And I don't have the measurements in front of me. He also shrunk a little bit, but say he's like, people like to add the extra height. He's like 6'5" something in shoes, let's say, which I think is fair. He's a good size shooting guard. And he's a shooting guard in all sense of the word. I do think that he can score at 3 levels. I do think that he's a really underrated playmaker in some ways. And he will give a team a scoring punch. I think the Wizards, it depends on how they view Jordan Poole and his future with the Wizards. They do have to do some bookkeeping, cleanings type stuff. Chris Middleton, probably not going to be a Wizard long term. They have Marcus Smart, probably not going to be a Wizard long term. Marcus Smart would be a sneaky pickup for an Eastern Conference team that really wants to add perimeter defense. And I think there is a world where Tre Johnson ends up here. I personally have them taking Queen. I think Queen makes a lot of sense here. He's also from Baltimore. That's not that far away. But yeah, in terms of I agree with basically all of these attributes. Latrell Sprewell is not a bad one. I think that's closer. I think he can be a better defender, but he's not a great defender right now currently. I do think that he did a little bit of the point guard skills. I think they like Bob Carrington as their ultimate floor general moving forward, who's large. So really, you want to pair him with a long-term scoring threat who could be there, and he could be one. So yeah, we'll see. Tyler Hero is an interesting one as well. Jeremiah Fears. I have heard buzz. Not going to go into the buzz right now, but I don't know if he's going to be here. But if he is here, I think it's a great fit. I think I've seen Maluach going here as well. I've considered Maluach going here myself, but I don't know if Maluach ultimately goes to the New Orleans Pelicans. And the reason for that is very simple. They are without DeJounte Murray for basically the whole year. They need a point guard, and they might want to have one in the wings. Obviously, they have Jose Alvarado, but they want a guy who's more of an offensive initiator. And I think that he could fit in long term. He's very interesting. Interesting comparisons. Jamal Murray, especially, or Jordan Poole. I don't see the Jordan Poole comparison. The Jamal Murray, I know coaches compared him to Dame. I think he's one of the best. Honestly, it's hard to say he's a screen navigator because in terms of his offense, he didn't have the best big men on his team, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. However, I do think, again, they even talk about, I didn't even read this. Before, yes. So this is the very interesting thing is that, like, do the Pelicans believe in DeJounte Murray coming back early enough? Number one. Number two, and I should say Joe Dumars, how much is he interested in having a two center or two big men type situation? Who is going to be the second big man? Because I don't know if you take, say, Maluach here, I don't know if he's the best fit next to Misi, but you could make it work long term. It depends on what they're wanting to do and how long they see their rebuild or retool or however they want to phrase it. Them building a team is going to be very interesting, and I do think that he fits. Especially when you see, I believe CJ McCollum is on the last year of his deal. That is another one where it's like, okay, there's a couple guards that are coming up where they either want to trade this guy or kind of look in another direction, and having someone in the wings makes sense. Noa Essengue, he's someone that I would love to have him on the Raptors. Nicholas Batum, Alfred Camino, interesting. I agree with him being a really high IQ team defender. He's done some stuff on ball, surprisingly, guarding smaller players, using his length. I think if you're giving like on a star rating, the 5-star rating or whatever, in terms of his defense, it's like 4 out of 5 stars. Like there's ways that he can get better, but he's like right there in terms of one of the better defenders of this draft. He's definitely not. In terms of at least what I think is his tools. Now, the defense doesn't always, at this point, like, there's an obvious level that there is strength. So I am projecting a little bit in terms of how good I think his defense can be. And I'm like projecting what the skills are and where I think it can be. But I think he's smart in terms of how he uses his length. There are ways that I do see it being overstated, though. So just want to add that caveat that, there is a world where he takes a while on defense at the NBA level, because obviously he is not playing in an NBA league right now. However, with that being said, the shooting concerns have not been great. Him not shooting really well. But he's done well recently. He's gone to the line recently a lot in the different games because he is still playing in Europe and in the playoffs. And overall, I think he's kind of on the rise. And if you're looking at an upside swing, he is someone that is it. I think he projects to have a higher offensive ceiling than certain other guys in this class. But yeah. Okay, so he has us taking Maluach. I've come around on Maluach. I was never out on him, but I was kind of concerned with certain things, just overall with the team. But yeah, like as I say, Maluach being selected by the Raptors, he's a towering rim protector. I don't know if I agree with the switchable mobility. I think that's giving him a little bit too much credit on defense. He really did have a lot of help with Cooper Flagg behind him. However, I think there are ways that you can use him kind of not fully switching, because I don't think he can switch 1 through 4, but switching closer to the perimeter and playing like a pseudo drop coverage if you play it smartly. I think his understanding of the game makes is though it's still raw, I think his positioning and whatnot will make a big difference, and that alone will determine whether or not he can be closer to being a switchable 7-foot guy. Mobility isn't quite there, but when you're 7 foot with the 7 foot whatever with a crazy wingspan, I think you're kind of talking about a different type of athlete and different physics, so to speak. I think he has some upside on the offensive end. I agree with him being a lob threat and a paint finisher. There's ways that he rolls, and I think that he will roll early on that I think will work really well and make him really effective if selected. He's an interesting guy, and I think that there's more to his game, especially offensively. So yeah, Rockets taking Kasaparas Jakucionis. I don't know if I see this. I can see other guys. They do have Reed Shepherd. They do have Fred VanVleet. I do know they also know. I also know that Fred VanVleet is on. They have a team option for him, so it really depends on that. I could see them taking that because there were times in the playoffs where you're distributing the ball actually matters, and sometimes it was like who's the ball supposed to go to? Is it Sengun? Is it Jalen? Having someone who's a good table setter and knows how to read the offensive hierarchy is going to be key. They have him as a 3-point marksman. I think the shot form is fine. There were times, I believe he got injured this year at one point with his wrist. But I think overall, if you're looking at a guy like Kasaparas, the way that I view him is this: in terms of the 3-point shot, I wouldn't read too much into the raw numbers, but more so is he able to get to spots. I think he gets to the line, if I'm not mistaken, just off rip, I think about 6.5 times a game at the college level. Those type of things do trickle through, show that he has a decent handle and a decent, honestly, a grasp of the offensive mapping to be able to get to those places. He's defensively, he's going to have to use his length. He's growing on me because of the playoffs, but that's a conversation for another day. Don't like the Dinwiddie notion. I think he's closer to maybe Bogdanovich, the one that plays for the Clippers right now. So yeah, Carter Bryant. The Portland Trailblazers are in an interesting situation. I don't know if I see Carter Bryant. I could actually see Yegor here. I think that they're either going to try to. At the same time, they do have Scoot Henderson. So maybe Carter Bryant actually, now I'm talking it through, maybe Carter Bryant actually might be, best available guy. There's a world where they could take Colin Murray-Boyles, but there's also a world where Colin Murray-Boyles, even though he might be one of the more talented guys, because of his overall physical profile and everything else, he might be falling. So again, not exactly surprised here. He's a little bit raw. In my opinion, there is probably a little bit more offensively. I mean, you'd have to say it because he had like 0 isolation possessions, 9 pick and roll ball handling possessions for the entirety of the year. I think those are that's per synergy, I believe. So if that is the case, it's like, how much on the bone is there? I don't know, because I haven't seen the whole bone. So yeah, Derik Queen could go either super high or he will fall. And I just heard that they are interested, they being the Bulls, are interested in basically trading Vucevic. So I could see Derik Queen going there, being their Vucevic replacement. Depends on who else is there. Sorry. Post presence, shot creator, cleaning the glass. Totally agree with all these things. Like the burly man with guard-like handles. I mean, he's a really fun watch, but there's a lot of things that need to go right for him, both from a situation standpoint. I agree with this. I think if he has the right tandem that he can kind of play with in a guard, I think he could be something really, really fun. But to me, I do think that ideally your centers are closer to two-way big men. DeMarcus Cousins, I think I know why they're saying that. I mean, his footwork is fairly decent, but I mean, DeMarcus was a beast. I don't know if I agree with Naz Reid, because I don't think that he shoots threes quite like Naz Reid, but we will see. Zach Randolph is one that I myself have seen and have thought as well. So yeah. Also, yeah, this is not his height. Asa Newell. This is very interesting. Atlanta Hawks. I do see them picking up big, especially with Clint Capella's future up in the air. Brandon Clark, but I think with the ability to potentially shoot is I think where I'm closer to saying that he would probably land. I don't agree with the Jonathan Isaac stuff. It's no shade against Jonathan Isaac. It's just that he's never healthy. I see him. Maybe that's part of the problem. But yeah, the thing with the Hawks right now, they have Onyeka Okongwu. I know some people thought he was a center. He is not a center at 6'8". I think Newell's a little bit taller than him, a little bit bigger, and he's also fairly, young still, so he could grow another inch, let's say. But in general, for a guy like Newell, I do believe in his shooting, but he's the type of player that he could play next to Onyeka. I know Onyeka shot the ball like twice per game. He shot like around 30%. It was an improvement, or actually I think he might have shot a little bit better this year, but in general the challenge with Onyeka is it's any shooting benefits that he has shown has been on low volume. And if someone's shooting at such low volume, it's hard for me to say. Liam McNeeley, I have not seen him this high in a mock in a minute. I'm glad to see him. Got injured during the year. Liam McNeeley, a UConn dude. You know what? I actually don't hate this pick by the Spurs. Like, for their second pick, just get someone who can play and get someone who will fit in for sure. You don't have to swing for the fences, so yeah. And then, of course, they have Con Murray Boyles going to OKC, who could potentially, we will see, but they will be in the NBA Finals, and we'll see what happens from there. So yeah, I agree with like a lot of the attributes and whatnot. I don't know where I see everyone going in terms of agreement there, but yeah, let's just scroll through really quickly. This is an interesting one because I do think that they're looking for, like, they really like Suggs. I think Suggs is really impactful on that team, but they need another guy who can kind of do a bit of everything, but more importantly also set the table and get a little bit of his own offense. And I think that Jace, still being an undersized guard, this is definitely not his height again. I think that he would be impactful in Orlando, because that's really what they need. They just need another guard that can either get downhill or do things for them. So yeah, I could see this being the thing. I could also see the Orlando Magic trying to trade up to try to get a guy. If they could get a guy like Fears, they would be so happy. Holy smokes, they would be happy. That would be like the perfect pick for Orlando, to be honest. But yeah, Cedric Howard, I need to do a deep dive on him soon. I've heard really positive things. I'd see Yagor going to Washington, second pick. Washington having 2 picks in this draft is really nice. Nolan by the Brooklyn Nets, and then you're going to see the Nets a bunch. Nick Clifford, Will Riley, Noah Penda. Wow, Maxine Renaud is moving up boards. I did like, he did a lot for himself at the Combine. I'll say that. Rasheer Fleming falling all the way to the Magic at 25. Really good player. Projects to be more of a power forward type player. Has a good skill set. I think he has a little bit more that he can offer down low. Yaxel. They need to update this because if I'm not mistaken, I believe today withdrew from the draft. So I have to double check on that. Don't quote me on it, but I believe he withdrew. So Yaxel's no longer in play. I've seen Danny Wolf all the way into the teens. Now I'm seeing him fall. So that is very interesting. Walter Clayton, Thomas Sorber, Ben Seraph. Okay, some of these guys have really fallen. And of course, again, there's not a lot of centers in this draft, like true centers. So Ryan Kalkbrenner moving up into the second round is not necessarily surprising. I don't know if I agree with the Wolves taking him, but yeah, I mean, we shouldn't really be surprised. Drake Powell, Gonzalez, Hugo is actually fallen quite a lot. This is surprising. So I'm just kind of like quickly kind of going through and seeing, and this is very, very interesting just to see where they have guys going. So yeah, we'll see. Do they go all the way to undrafted? Tyrese Proctor going back. Yeah. Ryan Nemhard did really well at the Combine as well. Yeah, no, this is great. So anyways, let me just get out of there. Back to you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, obviously. If you like this stuff, stay tuned. We will be doing more versus conversations. I have one uploaded. By the time this is uploaded, that one will be published. And we're going to do a couple more, like Nick Clifford versus Rasheer Fleming, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to revisit some prospects as well. So, of course, this is Basketball Rewind. Stay tuned, stay locked in, stay well, and I hope, I hope to see you all soon. All right, peace.